Well, brand new spoiler review here on Max Talks Movies. My name is Max Dinenberg, and today I'm giving you my spoiler review for episode 2 of the HBO show Lanterns. The episode is titled Trust Falls. So welcome back to Max Talks Movies. We're back breaking down the new DCU show Lanterns. So let me know your thoughts, by the way. First of all, down in that comment section, I'd love to comment with you guys on this episode if you liked it more than the first, less. All right, what is your big, bold predictions or theories you have for the rest of the season? We'd love to have a fun discussion with you guys down in the comments section. And overall, I think this is another really good episode of Lanterns. I didn't think this was as good as the first episode, but I still thought that this was very good. I'm very much enjoying this show. As of now, again, 2 episodes in, it's by far my favorite project that I've gone to watch from James Gunn's era of the DCU. By far, like I don't think anything has come close quality wise to Lanterns. And I do think you could definitely tell some clearer issues I have with it. It's not that I have with it is, and I'll get into this my spoiler review. I don't like break down each storyline. I just like talk about my general spoiler thoughts. But you could definitely tell during this episode that they have a lot of explaining to do to general audiences. Die-hard comic book fans like myself, we understand the majority of what's going on, what manhunters are, who Sinestro is, a lot of the lore, right? We understand that. But this show is not just for DC die-hard comic book fans. This is on prime time Sunday night HBO for very much casual audiences who just want to check out a True Detective-esque, superhero-esque show. And I think what you can definitely tell is, again, the Green Lantern story has really never been told in movies or shows. We've gotten the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie, but for majority of audiences outside of that movie, they don't know anything about the Green Lanterns other than they have these powers and they have this green ring. Outside of that, majority of audiences just don't know the lore of these characters. So you can definitely tell at times in this episode they need a lot of exposition to kind of explain what is going on. They introduce the Manhunters, they need to explain who the Manhunters are. That's just an example. They do a lot of scenes where they have to re-explain things multiple times throughout an episode, and you can definitely tell, and I totally get it, which is this like, a lot of people are going to compare this show to The Penguin, for example, because obviously both are DC shows that got put on prominent HBO networks. But with Penguin, Batman and the world of Batman has been established for 40 to 50 years in movies. People, even generic, casual superhero fans, understand what Gotham is and what crime is like in Gotham. They don't have so much over explaining to do with the Penguin. But Green Lantern, you do, because these characters are brand new to many audiences. We've never gotten Jon Stewart in live action before. We are getting new lore, new things explained. So you definitely tell this show is trying to do a good job at making sure that not just comic book fans are the ones watching the show and enjoying it and are enthralled. They want other audiences to do so. So my big issue is, again, I understand what's going on, but for me, there's a lot of scenes where they have to re-explain something that was just explained, and I was like, I get it. But you can tell sometimes the writers don't totally trust the audience, that they need to explain to get something over. I will say it's my biggest nitpick, I would say, with this episode. But on that note, I really like this episode. Big positive for me on this episode. The episode, as I said, is called, I was gonna say movie. The episode is titled Trust Fall, and it really is about trust because we kind of got this wonky dynamic between Hal and John. Not wonky, but very interesting dynamic in that first episode where Hal is the supposed respected veteran, only true superhero in the world. He's policing the world, especially Earth, and he has a lot of that on his shoulders. And John is someone who knows and wants to be trained well, but Hal knows that the only way John becomes a Green Lantern is if he dies, and he doesn't want to give up that power yet. And we get the untrustworthiness, the rudeness between the two of them, but also the love and respect I believe you do feel between the two of them. And this episode is that because obviously we get the beginning where Hal wants John to try to fly. That doesn't really go well. We get the bird in this episode, and he sends John off to just pick up some things for him in his house, his mansion, because he needs to recharge his ring. While they're in our main town, Hal continues the investigation. He sees that there are not just like those, those security things when you go to events where they can get out the metal and all of that stuff. They have alien detectors in this town, which Hal finds not just interesting, but weird because he's never met someone on Earth with that type of technology. And he's here now to figure out who can have that particular pieces of technology. He obviously thinks it's Will Macon, the big sheriff, not the actual sheriff, but the person who kind of acts like the sheriff, the person kind of running the town, who is the father-in-law to our actual sheriff of Cary. Um, and Hal gets shot at his ranch for trying to, impose himself because everyone in town wants Hal out of there. But Hal knows that something is off. It's not just that aliens died, it's that there's clearly technology and something there that's not supposed to be there. And what we learn about it is that when John's going back, he gives Eugene his food. He gets the lantern, the actual lantern itself, which I thought was really cool design in that different dimension. John is then chased down and captured in this episode by it looks to be some aliens of Anton, played by Paul Ben Victor, who say there are manhunters, and there's a particular manhunter in this town, and John has 48 hours to find the manhunter and turn him in, or else he blows up the entire town. Now, John did get like the memories of what these aliens have felt from the manhunters. We get kind of a cute scene in the hospital. I think you're going to see a little romantic flair between, I think, Carrie and Hal. You kind of feel that, or just friendship, whatever it is. But you feel something positive happening in that hospital scene between Carrie and Hal. Real evolution as the episode went on between the two characters. We also get a diner scene between John and Zoe, who, of course, is Will's wife. And they have that discussion. I will say off the bat, I do think Zoe is the manhunter. She's been showing up random points of John. I would not be shocked. Like everyone's kind of giving their theories on who the actual manhunter is. I think they're making it very obvious that it's Will. I actually think it's Zoe because why is she popping up randomly at these places to talk to John? Why is she trying to get intimate with John? Why is she, popping up randomly at a diner with John? Like it's very out of the blue and random for someone of such not just high class, but it seems like Will and that whole setup feel like they're in a different universe than the rest of the town. And you think Zoe would be involved in that being Will's wife, but she doesn't really feel like she's a part of that. So she's my theory right now for the Manhunters. As we know, the Manhunter can disguise themselves as anyone. That's why they're very hard to find. And when John actually makes a big decision towards the end of the episode, which was would John tell Hal that these guys are looking for the Manhunters and all of these things? And John, even though Hal has been pretty much a douchebag to him in the 80% of the time on the show, John still trusts Hal more than anyone in this situation. So he tells Hal at the end of the episode that these guys, they captured him. What's up with Manhunters? And that's when, also John brings the actual Green Lantern costume to him. And when John goes to sleep for the night, Hal puts on his Green Lantern costume and he meets with Sinestro in prison in a really fascinating scene where Hal says, what can you tell me about Manhunters? And clearly it's set up that the Manhunter who they're looking for killed the Green Lantern before Hal, which gave him the ring, which turned him into the Green Lantern of Earth. And Hal does not know who this Manhunter is. And Sinestro says, that's the second most dangerous thing in your life. Tell me more about John Stewart. Obviously, it seems like John is extremely powerful. It does not seem that Hal sometimes isn't just afraid of John because John could take over his spot as Green Lantern. There's something about John's powers that for some reason irks or makes Hal a little bit nervous. And, he could have been training him more consistently, but he's been keeping a bit of distance at times between him and John, which I do find that makes this dynamic very fascinating. So to Sinestro, John is actually the most dangerous person in his life, which is going to be interesting as we learn more because obviously John, we learned in this episode, even without the ring on, kept the bird alive that throughout the whole episode without needing the ring, which is a very, very big deal. Impressed those aliens that met with him. And even though Hal didn't try to bring it up to him, clearly Hal was kind of shook that John could keep this bird alive without and keep that concentration going without the ring. So that would be very interesting. We learned that also Carrie is from Gotham and her last name is Kane, which I think is going to give some theory time as well for other people. I thought this was a very strong episode of Lanterns. I'm very interested in the mystery, both of who the villains are, but also the true power that John possesses that seems to be fearing everyone involved. And some people are trying to call this like a buddy cop dynamic. It really isn't a buddy cop dynamic between Hal and John. There's clear respect and love between the two of them, but there's also fear, I think, coming from Hal. And John just doesn't understand why Hal fears his power so much. You can also feel that as well. I think Aaron Pierre and Kyle Chandler are just fantastic on this show. Very excited. Who are your guys' theories on who is the Manhunter that we're going to be finding out probably the next episode or two? Let me know down in the comments. Like this video. Please subscribe to Max Talks Movies, and I'll see you guys in another video very soon.